You know, being a wrestling fan is not always easy. We try to have fun. We nitpick the stupid stuff. For the most part, it's a laugh. We try to get entertained, try to have as much as excitement as we can possibly have. Last night was supposed to be one of the best nights in the history of not history of wrestling, but at least the wrestling this year. And when the night was over, I sat there scratching my head, thinking, "What a waste! What a waste of a brand split this has become so far." I mean, I may be judging too soon, but just from the beginning of it, it has become West shit, or Push shit as I like to call it. Who writes this shit? Who the fuck writes this shit? They have like 30 writers. Not one of them could see that this was going to fall flat on its fat ass. So, the brand split happens, and I got here a list of every wrestler from the Raw brand, and from the SmackDown brand. And I'm going to go through all of them today, and I'm going to... Now this was the first live SmackDown in a consistent series of live SmackDown. So, as far as the actual show goes, it was nothing special. We had the main event of Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins for the WWE title. It was a good match. Not as good as the Raw match or any of their other matches, but it was a good match. Anyways, back to actual goodness. Well, I should say shittiness. I don't get the reason. Let me adjust the camera. I don't get the fucking reason. Why? Why does WWE continue to shoot themselves in the foot like this? Okay, before I continue on, let's just get to the wrestlers so that way. And there was the actual brand show, which aired on the network, the Aftermath. You know, putting the other wrestlers on the brands. And then there was the SmackDown where they branded the big names. Well, by the end of it, quote unquote big names. Anyways, let's get to it. Now, I will admit, in terms of the names, the beginning of it sounded awesome and gave SmackDown a huge edge so far at that point. Let's see, and here's the thing, but here's the problem that I knew was going to kick SmackDown in the ass. It was going to be the fact that SmackDown, with every 2 picks SmackDown got, Raw got 3, because it's a 3-hour show and SmackDown is a 2-hour show. Now, my problem is simply this. You could have done 1 or 3 things. 1, you could have put Raw to 2 hours, which sure as shit wasn't happening. 2, you could have put SmackDown to 3 hours, which would have bored the hell out of the rest of us. And of course, 3, which is what they went through, they did nothing. Nothing! Dumbasses. Okay, so the show opened up with... So what happened was... Stephanie McMahon and Mick Foley, the new Raw GM... The Raw Commissioner and SmackDown Commissioners are Stephanie and Shane, respectively. The Raw and SmackDown GMs, or General Managers, are Mick Foley and Daniel Bryan. Which, adds some good name recognition to both. So anyways, next. Next was... God. Just looking at the list makes me fucking frustrated as all fuck. So, okay. Stephanie okay, so what was I getting at a second ago? What I was getting at a second ago was you have to counteract the Raw having more talent with SmackDown by putting a bunch of the great talent, not all of it, but a lot of the great talent on SmackDown. Which in the beginning they did, and they fall flat on their fat fucking asses. So, first of all, we have Stephanie and Shane and Mick Foley choose. Let's face it, it was really just Stephanie because she's a bitch. Stephanie chooses Seth Rollins as the first draft pick for Raw, which, doesn't surprise me. The first 3 picks for Raw were Seth Rollins, Charlotte, which really surprised me because Charlotte is not only a woman, but let's face it, doesn't matter how high or lower you are, being a woman in WWE is a disadvantage. God, why am I coughing so much right now? But the third one that really shocked me this early was Finn Balor. I did not expect Finn Balor to show up this far. This far in. Or this close in, I should say. Finn Balor, well, we all knew it was happening. After the Shinsuke Nakamura match, it all but confirmed that Finn Balor was going to the main roster, probably going to be with the club, which kind of happened, except with no AJ Styles, so I don't get to that. But they countered that, SmackDown did, with Dean Ambrose and AJ Styles. Awesome. Dean Ambrose is a pretty good wrestler. AJ Styles, though, is the best wrestler in WWE right now. Some could say on planet Earth he is the best wrestler right now, which is not shocking at all. I mean, God. AJ Styles ended his New Japan run by putting over Shinsuke Nakamura, or losing to Shinsuke Nakamura. I know he had one match after the night after, but let's face it, the Shinsuke Nakamura match at Wrestle Kingdom 10, that was fucking awesome. Then he put over Zack Sabre Jr., one of the biggest favorites of the Indies right now, at Rev Pro. Put him over like a star, and then he went to WWE. So I was happy. The next 5 picks were for Raw. The first 3 were Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, and the New Day. Now, one, I'm surprised Roman Reigns wasn't in the top 5. That actually kind of shocked me. Brock Lesnar, yeah, kind of. I could understand. And the New Day, which, okay, I could maybe kind of understand. But I was shocked that Raw picked the New Day this early. I mean, I would have said New Day for just a little bit later. Maybe the next round. And they call it rounds, by the way. But the next 2 wrestlers that SmackDown picked were John Cena and Randy Orton. Okay. First of all, I love the fact that SmackDown's getting John Cena and Randy Orton, who were the 2 biggest names of the past era, the Ruthless Aggression era, and for much of the PG era, they were the biggest names. But I'm a little bit wary. If for one reason, I do not want to see John Cena versus Randy Orton again. God forbid that happens. But so far big names. They got one woman in there, which they'll eventually get. The next 3 names for Raw were Sami Zayn, Sasha Banks, and Chris Jericho. And SmackDown was Bray Wyatt and Becky Lynch. Which, let's go over Raw real quick. So they got some of the big names. They got Zayn, Banks, and Jericho. Okay. First of all, Jericho's not going to be around longer. God damn it. And, Banks, totally understandable since Charlotte's on the roster and they're feuding. And, Chris Jericho, like I said, Zayn's a big name. Sasha just explained, and Jericho's not going to be around much longer because I think by the end of the year, or maybe early next year, he's going to go touring again with Fozzy. His band, that thing. So, so yeah. And then, yeah, and Bray Wyatt makes sense for SmackDown. I mean, like, Bray Wyatt's an up-and-coming guy. He would get fucking killed. He would get slaughtered on Monday Night Raw. They had to make the move for him to go to SmackDown. So far, this was, like, kind of making sense. Maybe one or two could have been changed, but for the most part, it was making sense. Dean Ambrose, WWE Champion, is on SmackDown, although I think that he is so going to lose the title on at Battleground this Sunday. NXT upstart, from... They got some big names for Raw so far. They had Reigns, Rollins, Zayn, Balor, and Lesnar, of course. And Chris Jericho. Of course, the women, of course, Charlotte and Sasha Banks. But here's where the problem starts to show itself with the next set. I mean, let's go over SmackDown real quick. Bray Wyatt makes sense. Becky Lynch, I'm not like if the women's championship is on Raw and there's no and so far there's no plan to split the titles or anything. Becky Lynch should have been on Raw. Now the next 5 kind of left you scratching your head slightly. You have for Raw, you have Rusev, Kevin Owens, and Enzo and Cass. And SmackDown, you have The Miz and Baron Corbin. It was at this point that the show was starting to piss me off. First of all, Zayn and Owens are having their supposedly last battle at Battleground. That's what they've been building it as. Why, in the Holy Mother of God, did you put them on the same brand? Why? Why would you put them on the same brand? Oh, damn it. Why? Why would you put them on the same brand? It makes no fucking sense. If you're going to split them up after the feud is over. I mean, like, I could see him having great matches with other guys, but seriously, I don't get it. I do not get it. Maybe you could have had Sami Zayn on SmackDown and Owens on Raw. That would have made sense. But do not put them in the same brand regardless of what brand. Do not put them in the same brand regardless of what brand they're on. I don't care. But Rusev, it kind of makes sense. Like, at first I was trepidation, but I was like, wait a minute. The United States title's on Raw. And the United States title's been treated like a joke. But the Intercontinental title, at least in the first 6 months of the year, was treated like pretty good. So, my thought process is, okay, they're going to get the lesser of the 2 mid-card titles, put it on Raw, which gives it more, time to show, while the Intercontinental title will be on SmackDown, and since the SmackDown is the Intercontinental title is the bigger title in comparison to the US title, it'll be on SmackDown, kind of balance it out. That kind of makes sense. So, Miz and Rusev being where they are makes sense. I totally get that. Owens already said my piece. Enzo and Cass. And this is when it was starting to become evidently clear to me where they were going with this. Good addition to Raw, but the other pick for SmackDown was Baron Corbin. Really? Like, I know he's an upstarting guy, but Baron Corbin would have been a little bit lower on my list because, God, he's not. I could have chosen several guys over Baron Corbin, and it was around this point in the show when I was thinking, where the hell is Cesaro? Where is Cesaro gonna be in the draft? I'm like, because you think SmackDown Since they want to build up their best talent, they want to put Cesaro there. But no, they put Baron fucking Corbin there. Honestly, Corbin would have been better off on Raw. Because, yeah, at least there, he can match up with some big names. Okay. And it's this point in the show that really starts to piss me off. Because they split up the club. AJ Styles went to SmackDown. So what do? They put the next 3 picks of Raw. They put Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson on Raw. Which at first, now unless they're forming the Balor Club or they're doing something with Finn Balor, there is actually not even that. Unless they're doing the Balor Club, there is no reason to put them on Raw. Unless they're going to do a Balor Styles feud. That would have been awesome. We could do so much with that. What is with these morons? They're the top dog in America? Bullshit. It's the stupidest company I've ever seen in my life. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. But that pales in comparison to the next pick. The next 2 picks for Raw. The next pick for Raw, they have The Big Show. Why? I can understand they need Big Show to go somewhere, but why didn't you just name him during the actual draft special on the network? That would have made more sense because Big Show's not nearly as big, no pun intended, as he used to be at all. He's not nearly as huge as he used to be. The next one left me scratching my head. And by the end of the night, this is probably one of the things that pissed me off the most. Their third pick they plucked from NXT was Nia Jax. What the fuck is wrong with these people? Why? Why would you take the most inexperienced female on NXT out of the 5 top names? She's one of them. Why would you take her, the least experienced one, and put her on Raw? Not only that, but also name her during the show. I know why they did it. Because Vince McMahon, with his fetish for big monster heels. What is it about this guy? Why? Why do they do this? Why, Vince? What, you got to fucking jerk off while Nia Jax makes her debut? Is that what you're gonna do? Well, if that was the case, why didn't you just marry a fat chick? She must have been tall. Giant ass tits that sag to the floor. You might as well have had Mr. McMahon marry Miss Chokes on Dick from South Park. Look, it's not that I don't like Nia Jax, but the problem here is that she's inexperienced. She's only been in WWE for about less than a year. She's only had a couple of good matches, and that's only because she was in there with 2 top female talent in the world right now, with Bayley and with Asuka. Those 2 wrestlers are pretty damn good. Nia Jax is not nearly on the caliber of those guys. Not even on the caliber of a normal wrestler. Her mic skills are lacking at the moment. Her wrestling skills are not that good at the moment. But NXT books it right so that way they can avoid that. That's the beauty of NXT. They, for the most part, except for maybe the Drifter, I forget his name already. They covered her weaknesses. They paired her with good talent. They made her look like a monster. And they made it look good. All I know is that when we see her on the main roster, she's going to flounder like a giant lemming. She's going to fail. And when she fails, I will be there laughing at her face. That was just Raw. The next two picks for SmackDown were Dolph Ziggler and Natalya. Now, that didn't piss me off nearly as much. Ziggler is your kind of veteran, pretty good to great wrestler. Natalya